The phone rang just after 2 a.m., the kind of call no one forgets. When Sarah Monroe picked it up, her husband's name flashed on the screen, but the voice on the other end wasn't E.T. his. It was a paramedic. There had been an accident, a stretch of wet highway outside Tucson, a truck that didn't see him. And by the time she reached the hospital, the man she'd loved for 12 years was already gone. By sunrise, Sarah was sitting on the edge of their bed, holding his wedding band in her palm, staring at the same mortgage statement he'd promised to pay next week, $1,843 due on Friday. Their checking account showed $612.43. The math didn't work. The life they'd built no longer existed. For a long time, she couldn't even cry. She just sat in the quiet house in South Tucson, hearing the refrigerator hum, the ceiling fan click, the dog pacing in the hallway. It didn't feel real yet, but the bills that began arriving 2 days later were very real. Hospital invoices, funeral costs, credit card statements, each envelope heavier than the last. Before the storm, Sarah was 36, a mother of 2, Emily 9 and Noah 6. Her husband Daniel had been a mechanic. They'd lived simply but happily. She worked part-time at the local library, loved the smell of old books and the rhythm of quiet afternoons. Their dreams were modest: fix up the house, take the kids to the Grand Canyon someday, maybe start a small auto shop once they'd saved enough. Money had always been tight, but they managed. Daniel handled the bills. Sarah handled the groceries. They talked about getting life insurance, even filled out the first page of a form once, but never finished it. There was always something else to pay first. A new pair of shoes for the kids, a broken washing machine, gas for the car. They were ordinary people, living an ordinary life. Until the night, everything stopped. The crash. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and burnt coffee. The waiting room TV played some midnight talk show no one was watching. A nurse finally stepped into the room and said Sarah's name softly, like she already knew the news would break her. He didn't make it. Those 3 words rearranged her world. The sound left her body before the tears did, a kind of hollow gasp that didn't sound human. She walked out into the desert night, the heat still clinging to the asphalt even after midnight, and looked at the empty sky. Somewhere their children were sleeping, unaware that everything had changed. The next morning, she had to tell them. Emily asked, "Is Daddy coming home tomorrow?" Sarah couldn't answer. She just held her daughter's face and whispered, "No, sweetheart, not tomorrow, not ever." The financial freefall. The first week blurred into paperwork and funeral arrangements. She hadn't even processed the grief when the financial avalanche began. The funeral alone cost over $9,200. The hospital sent a bill for $47,000. There was a $1,843 mortgage payment due, a $340 car note, $180 in utilities, and only $612.43 in checking. Daniel's last paycheck was still pending, but it wouldn't even cover the funeral flowers. When Sarah tried to transfer the title of the car, she discovered it had been financed in Daniel's name only. To claim it, she needed a death certificate and a court order. Every call to the insurance company led to another hold tone, another, "I'm sorry, ma'am." That policy was never completed. By the second week, she was behind on the mortgage. By the third, the credit card company started calling. Their voices were polite but sharp. "Mrs. Monroe, your minimum payment is now past due. Do you have a plan to resolve this?" She didn't. She barely had a plan to breathe. The weight of silence. Nights were the worst. After the kids fell asleep, the house grew so quiet it felt like pressure on her chest. She'd sit at the kitchen table surrounded by unopened envelopes, all the ones she couldn't face. The numbers blurred. The words "final notice" glared up at her. She stopped answering the phone, stopped opening the mail, stopped looking at the bank app. Some mornings, she couldn't even get out of bed. But then she'd hear Noah's little feet on the hallway tile, or Emily asking what was for breakfast, and she'd pull herself up, because she had to. Her hands trembled when she packed the kids' lunches, not from hunger, but from fear. The kind that eats at you slowly, the kind that whispers, "You're not gonna make it." Friends drifted away after the funeral. The casseroles stopped coming. Everyone had their own lives, their own problems. The Edge one night, a month after the funeral, she sat on the bathroom floor with the lights off. The bills were spread beside her, the checkbook open, her calculator blinking zero after zero. She realized there was no money left. The mortgage company had sent a final warning. If payment is not received within 15 days, foreclosure proceedings will begin. She pressed her hand against her mouth so the kids wouldn't hear her sobbing. The sound that came out of her wasn't a cry. It was something raw, something ancient. When she finally lifted her head, her eyes landed on the small blue library card on the counter, the one she'd used to check out books for story time. And behind it, half buried under unopened mail, was Daniel's old laptop, the screen cracked but still working. She didn't know it yet, but those two things, that library card and that laptop, were about to become the tools that rebuilt her entire life. This is the story of Sarah Monroe from Tucson, Arizona, of the $112,000 debt that swallowed her whole, and the 3 years of silent, stubborn work that set her free. The next morning, Sarah woke before dawn. The air was cold and dry, the kind of Arizona morning that makes you feel small beneath the pale sky. The house was silent except for the hum of the fridge. She poured the last of the cereal into 2 bowls and watched her kids eat without a word. When the school bus pulled away, she sat on the front steps, holding her coffee mug with both hands, staring at the for sale sign across the street. Another family leaving, another mortgage they couldn't pay. That's when it hit her. She was next. She had 10 days left before foreclosure, the search for survival. Sarah spent the next hours scrolling through job listings, cleaning houses, night shifts, cashier work, anything that didn't require a degree she didn't have. The library job barely covered groceries and she needed more. That same afternoon, she went downtown, filled out 6 applications, and came home with sore feet and a heart full of panic. No one was hiring full-time. The next week, she started cleaning offices at night. It paid $12.50 an hour. By the time she got home at 3 a.m., her hands smelled of disinfectant and her knees ached from scrubbing floors. Then she'd sleep 3 hours, pack lunches, and head to the library. Days blurred, nights bled into mornings, bills still piled up. Every time she opened the mailbox, it felt like opening a wound, the breaking point. One Friday evening, she came home to find a yellow envelope taped to her door. The bank. Final notice. Foreclosure date, September 12th. She sank to the floor, her back against the wall, the letter trembling in her hands. How do you explain to 2 children that the only home they've ever known will be gone? That night, she tucked them into bed and went to the kitchen table. She opened Daniel's laptop. The screen flickered, half the pixels dead, but it turned on. She typed, "How to make money from home." Millions of results appeared. Surveys, freelance gigs, scams. She read every one, clicked every link, until one headline caught her eye. Single mom turns $50 into a small business from her kitchen table. It wasn't the money that drew her in. It was the phrase from her kitchen table. That's where Sarah was sitting. Right there, right then, she clicked. The spark. The article was about a woman who started selling homemade crafts online, using free websites and social media to reach customers. Sarah didn't know anything about business, but she did know books, words, and the quiet rhythm of stories. An idea began to form. Something small, something she could do at night when the kids were asleep. The next day, she went to the library, her own workplace, and checked out books about small businesses, copywriting, marketing, and budgeting. She stayed late after her shift, reading every page, underlining every phrase that made sense. That night, she opened a notebook and wrote at the top, "Ways I can earn money without leaving home." She listed 10 ideas. 9 were ridiculous, but one made her pause. Writing online content. It sounded impossible. She didn't have a degree, didn't know where to start, but it was something. The first attempt. The next evening, after putting Emily and Noah to bed, she sat at that same kitchen table, opened Daniel's laptop again, and began typing. Her first article was about saving money on groceries, simple but honest. She uploaded it to a website that paid per view. 2 days later, she earned $3.12. It wasn't much, but it was proof. Proof that she could still create something from nothing. Over the next weeks, she kept writing. Late nights, tired eyes, endless coffee. The house stayed quiet except for the clack of keys. Sometimes she'd fall asleep on the keyboard. Sometimes she'd cry mid-sentence. But she didn't stop. By the end of the month, she had earned $42.11, enough to buy groceries for a week. It wasn't enough to stop the foreclosure, but it was hope. The collapse then, just when things started to feel bearable, the letter came. The house had been sold. She and the kids had 30 days to leave. That night, she packed boxes until her hands bled. Every photo, every toy, every piece of a life that no longer fit anywhere. Emily found her crying and asked, "Mom, are we poor now?" Sarah didn't know how to answer. So she said, "We're not poor, honey. We're just starting over." They moved into a one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. The walls were thin, the carpet smelled of dust, and the rent took half her income. But it was theirs. And for the first time in months, Sarah felt something new. Not comfort, not safety, but determination. Because she realized something powerful. No one was coming to save her. If she wanted a future, she'd have to build it herself. The turning point. She went back to that library card, to that cracked laptop. She read everything she could about online writing, freelancing, and digital business. She joined free forums, watched YouTube tutorials, printed guides she couldn't afford to buy. Each night after work, she practiced. She learned how to format blog posts, write headlines, use keywords, and pitch clients. Her words improved. Her confidence grew. By Christmas, she'd earned her first $500 online. And while it wasn't much, it was hers. That money bought a used desk, a second-hand chair, and new shoes for her kids. It was small, but it was the start of something real. That winter, as she watched her children open presents in their tiny apartment, 2 toys each wrapped in old newspaper, she whispered a promise to herself. "Next year will be different. I don't know how yet, but it will." And that promise, whispered in a dimly lit room with nothing but a flickering lamp and the sound of her kids' laughter, became the foundation of everything that came next. The year began with a gray sky and an empty fridge. But Sarah was no longer the same woman who had cried on the bathroom floor months earlier. The pain was still there, yes, but now it was fuel. Every night, after she tucked the kids into bed, she sat at that small desk by the window, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. The glow of the screen reflected in her tired eyes. She didn't watch TV anymore, didn't scroll social media. Every hour was sacred, an hour traded for the future. She wrote articles, blog posts, product descriptions, anything she could find online. Some nights she earned $10. Others, nothing at all, but every piece she wrote was a lesson, every rejection an education. Learning the language of success, Sarah started studying the people who were succeeding. She read their blogs, followed their routines, listened to their podcasts. One sentence from an interview stayed with her. "You can't wait to feel ready. You build confidence by doing the work scared." So that's what she did. She worked scared. She learned about personal finance, budgeting, and entrepreneurship, not just to survive, but to understand. She realized how fragile their old life had been, one paycheck away from collapse. She promised herself, never again. By spring, she began writing financial articles, tips for saving money, paying off debt, budgeting for single mothers. It was personal, raw, real, and readers felt it. Her words weren't polished, but they were honest, and honesty connected. The first break. One evening, she received an email from a small financial blog in Oregon. They'd read one of her posts on a writing platform and wanted to hire her. $75 per article, 3 articles a week. She read the email twice, then a third time. $225 a week. It wasn't freedom yet, but it was a way out. That night, she cried for the first time in months, not from pain, but from relief. She told the kids the next morning. Emily hugged her tight. Noah asked, "Does that mean we can get pizza this weekend?" They did. And for the first time since Daniel's death, they laughed through dinner. The grind. The months that followed were relentless. She woke at 4 a.m. to write before work, cleaned offices at night, tucked the kids in, then wrote again until her vision blurred. Some nights she'd whisper to herself, "Keep going, Sarah, just one more paragraph." Her bank account slowly began to breathe again. $500, $200, $2,800. She started saving for an emergency fund, 10 at a time. She tracked every expense, every goal, every dream on a whiteboard next to her desk. At the top, she'd written 3 words in red marker: pain into power. Building something bigger. By the end of the year, she had steady clients and her own website, Sarah Monroe Writes.com. She shared stories about financial recovery, single motherhood, and mental resilience. Her posts began reaching thousands of readers, many of them women just like her, scared, grieving, and broke, but still fighting. Messages started pouring in. "Your story gave me hope. I lost my husband too. I thought I was alone. Because of you, I started saving again." Each message lit a small fire in her chest. She realized this wasn't just about money anymore. It was mission. She began studying how to turn her writing into a business, not just freelance work, but a brand. She learned copywriting, affiliate marketing, and how to build digital products. Her website grew, so did her income. The moment of realization. One evening, nearly 2 years after losing Daniel, she sat on the same kitchen floor where she'd once cried. But this time, there were no bills scattered around her, only a single paper, a check for $8,450 from her freelance work that month. She stared at it for a long time, her hands trembling again. But this time, from gratitude. She had done it. Not because she was special, not because she was lucky, but because she refused to stop. The same woman who once couldn't afford groceries now ran her own business, mentoring other women to earn online, budget wisely, and rebuild from nothing. A new chapter. She opened a savings account for her children, started investing, small at first, $100 a month, built a small emergency fund, paid off every debt, and on a bright Saturday morning, 3 years after the accident, she drove past their old street. The house was different now. New paint, new owners, a different life inside those walls. She didn't cry this time. She smiled, because she finally understood something. She hadn't lost her home. She'd found herself, her mission. Today, Sarah runs a small content agency that helps women in financial recovery tell their own stories online. She teaches them the same principles that saved her: consistency, courage, and the power of creating value. Her motto is written above her desk: "You can rebuild from zero if you don't quit at one." The same kitchen table that once held stacks of unpaid bills now holds notebooks, business plans, and a laptop that funds their entire life. And every night, before shutting it down, Sarah whispers a quiet thank you. Not just to the husband she lost, but to the pain that forced her to rise. 3 years later, the same Arizona sun that once felt merciless now painted soft gold across her living room. The walls were no longer bare, they were covered in color. Her children's drawings, motivational quotes, and a single framed photo of Daniel, smiling in the backyard with oil on his hands and sunlight in his eyes. Sarah stood there for a long moment, coffee in hand, watching the morning light spread across the floorboards. The house was small, but it was hers, paid in full. No debt, no late notices, no fear, just peace. The ripple effect. Her business had grown far beyond what she ever imagined. What began as one woman typing in the dark had become a digital lifeline for hundreds of others. She now hosted online workshops for single mothers, women who'd been left behind, forgotten, or written off. She taught them not just how to make money, but how to believe again. Her program was simple. Start where you are, use what you have, and never stop learning. But her message was deeper. You can lose everything, but as long as you're still breathing, you're not finished. Emails poured in from across the country, from women in small apartments, shelters, and quiet kitchens, telling her how they'd started freelancing, budgeting, or creating side incomes. Some paid their rent for the first time. Some bought their children's school supplies without fear, and all of them had one thing in common. They started because of her. A letter to Daniel. One night, after putting the kids to bed, Sarah sat down at her desk and opened a blank document. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat. She began typing a letter, not for publication, not for business, but for him. Dear Daniel, it's been 3 years since you left. The kids are growing. Emily's learning guitar, and Noah wants to be an engineer. You'd be proud of them. For a long time I was angry, not at you, but at life, at the silence you left behind. But I've learned something beautiful through all of this. You didn't leave me empty. You left me strong. Everything I build now, every word I write, every woman I help, carries a piece of what we dreamed together. You once promised you'd build us a better life. I think maybe I finished it for us. She saved the file and closed the laptop. Then she looked up at the framed photo again and smiled through tears. The moment that defined everything. Months later, Sarah stood on a small stage at a community event in Tucson. The banner behind her read, "From rock bottom to financial freedom." She wasn't a celebrity, she wasn't rich, but when she spoke, the room fell silent. She didn't talk about strategies or numbers. She talked about the nights she couldn't sleep, the fear of losing her home, and the quiet decision to keep typing anyway. Her voice cracked when she said, "I thought my story ended the night my husband died, but it turns out that was just the first chapter of who I was meant to become." The audience rose in applause. Some cried. Others just nodded, quietly inspired. Full circle. That evening, as she drove home, the desert stretched endlessly under a deep orange sky. Emily and Noah sang in the back seat, their laughter filling the car. She rolled down the window, feeling the warm air rush in, carrying the scent of dust and freedom. She wasn't chasing survival anymore. She was building legacy. When they pulled into the driveway, the porch light flicked on, a small golden glow waiting to welcome them home. Sarah paused before unlocking the door and looked up at the stars. The same sky that once witnessed her pain now shimmered with peace. "We made it," she whispered. Not because the world had been kind, but because she had refused to let it break her. Epilogue. Today, Sarah's name is known in online communities across the US, not as a millionaire, but as a mentor of resilience. She teaches people that financial freedom isn't just about money. It's about self-worth. It's about taking one small, brave step when the world tells you to give up. Because that's what she did. One step at a time, one paragraph at a time, until pain became purpose. And in the quiet moments before sleep, when her children's laughter still echoes in the halls, she thinks back to that night, the cracked laptop, the empty fridge, the darkness that felt endless, and realizes something profound. The story wasn't about what she lost. It was about everything she found inside herself when there was nothing left to lose. Did Sarah's journey move you? If this story sparked something in you, hope, courage, or even a quiet reminder that you're not alone, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear how it resonated with you. And if you believe in stories that empower, uplift, and remind us that financial freedom starts from within, subscribe to the channel for more powerful narratives that prove resilience is the greatest currency. Your next chapter might begin with a single story. Let it be this one.